Hello, 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 and welcome to Barely Hoops, Ball and Europe's basketball show that is, well, just about basketball, but not entirely. And given EuroBasket is just around the corner, in fact, when you're listening to this, I'm probably already in a plane on my way to it. Unless you're one of the really earliest listeners, and then, much love to you. I'm in the airport at that stage instead. And my guest today is a person synonymous with being heard whenever there's international basketball or indeed basketball on the continent because he is a FIBA commentator. He is also, of course, a colleague of mine as a Basketball Champions League commentator, and he is a voice you've heard for so many memorable moments over the years in this great sport of ours. Jeff Taylor, dude, it is a delight to welcome you to Barely Hoops.
Hey, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for the introduction.
Thank you so much. And obviously, this is audio, not video, so you can't realize Jeff is in Spain enjoying some phenomenally nice weather. I'm in Dublin, where it's a bit overcast right now, so I know who's winning here right now. Jeff, well, this is like, it's not really a this is your life thing, but the beginning question kind of is for people who don't know you, who haven't heard about you, like, explain to us sort of the journey of how you sort of, even fell into basketball as part of your life, like, and where you came from and all that.
Well, I take it as a real source of pride that I come from North Carolina, growing up on ACC basketball, Atlantic Coast Conference basketball from, I'd probably say as early as 6 years old, watching players that represent the universities. And there was just a lot of intensity in these rivalries. Of course, in those days, you might have a game of the week or a game midweek and a game on a Saturday, nothing like today when we have so much streaming that goes on. And it's a tradition that is kind of passed down all over America, but I think especially in North Carolina, where parents go to these schools and they pass down their love of their universities and the sports teams down to their kids. And I actually was raised on a steady diet of Duke University and North Carolina State because my dad studied at Duke, played baseball at Duke, took me to Duke games at the weekends, not primarily football, when we lived in Raleigh for 4 years. And he also took me to a lot of North Carolina State games. Never went to UNC games, but after we moved to Charlotte when I was 12 and I started just evolved as a person and really involved in my high school and just loving every bit of high school life and sports and student government and all that. I came to realize that really for me, a better fit would be the University of North Carolina, which was the bitter enemy. And so to kind of make a long story short, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I immediately fell in love with the place. I kind of consider it my home away from home. I always go back when I'm in North Carolina, walk the campus, kind of live in the past, so to speak. I don't know if that's healthy. When I was there, my freshman class, we had great players. Obviously the Hall of Fame coach Dean Smith. So I had a real instant connection with basketball in my life from my earliest years all the way through university. And my first year at UNC, Michael Jordan played for North Carolina.
Okay.
Uh,
There's good
James
timing and
Worthy.
there's good timing, So
Well, it was, and but such was the fact that we didn't win it all, and we had this bizarre notion that MJ could have stayed another year, but we're like, you know what, maybe it's a good thing that he goes pro because then maybe they're going to share the ball more, or maybe everybody else is going to raise their level. I mean, we had great players other than Michael Jordan.
of
It
course.
sounds ludicrous. It sounds ludicrous to look back and say that, but I honestly, this will sound ridiculous to a lot of people, but I feel blessed to have been at UNC, to have met Dean Smith, to have seen Michael Jordan play, to have done all of that. So my connection goes all the way back to there, and then after traveling the world, after university, I went and worked at a boarding school in Indiana, the Culver Academies. I was the assistant coach for the varsity, and I don't know if you know anything about Indiana high school basketball, but
I know
you
it's
know,
obsessive to an extreme, like, so.
it is high school basketball central. Everybody goes to the state tournament at the end. You have to watch the movie Hoosiers to kind of fully appreciate this history. And that's what it was. I remember we didn't have a great team, but we went to the state tournament, and I remember taking road trips, driving through cornfields. It was amazing. And and then after traveling the world for 3 years, got serious with life, moved to Charlotte. Really fortunate to work at WSOC TV as an intern in the news department. which kind of allowed me to use a lot of my writing skills, which I've tried to develop while I was backpacking, in fact, with a diary, with a journal. And then when I had time off, they let me go to all the sporting events, Charlotte Hornets, college games. I would take the camera. I would go into the locker room after the game, interview guys like Muggsy Bogues, all of these great players, great coaches. I think the NBA has probably changed a lot now, but we would literally sit right on the floor underneath the basket and film games. So I was really fortunate. And then after getting married, stayed in Charlotte for a couple of years, moved up to New England, Nantucket, which was another home away from home for me, and then moved to England with my then wife, and had to find some work, and just at the right place at the right time. I was working the phones, calling people, calling anybody and everybody just to get a job. I mean, it was tough. I was legal. I could work in the country, but journalism is not necessarily a field that, at least in those days, that you could break right into.
Oh no, it still
And
isn't. But also you had a technological challenge there because it wasn't like sort of today where we have streaming, say for the commentary you do. There was like only so many games being broadcast a week, only so many global
oh,
feeds.
yeah, yeah,
And
commentary was not part of it, but I mean,
yeah,
I was willing to do that. I
yeah.
mean, literally a chance call to Channel 4. Hi, this is Jeff Taylor. I was calling to speak to the person that's in charge of your basketball coverage. And she goes, you need to speak to this guy. Here's his name, Ross Close. Gives me the telephone number. I have no idea who this is. I hang up. I was in Yorkshire at the time, and make this phone call. On the other end of the phone, it's a guy, mate. I was like, "Hey, Ross, this is Jeff Taylor calling. I just want to ask you about opportunities in basketball." I was like, "Jeff, I'm just stepping out of a taxi in Rome, but why don't you give me a call on Monday when I'm back in London?" So I did that. Turns out he had really nothing to do with Channel 4. He worked for ISL, which produced a basketball program called Slam. He invited me down. I took the train, went down to London, met him. He threw me into a booth. I had to watch some European game that didn't know anything about, just no preparation, whatever, thinking, oh, this is not going very well. I stepped out and fully expecting him to say, Jeff, yeah, we don't really have anything right now. And he's like, yeah, we can work with that. So, so he, so he gave me a job. So he gave me a job writing the scripts with another journalist called Rob Dugdale, who is really a funny, excellent writer, knew a lot about basketball. And we wrote these scripts and then we voiced them for this show called Slam. And it was about 30 minutes, fastest 30 minutes in basketball, I think it was called, or fastest 27
Yeah, I
minutes.
think that was like
Anyway,
on Saturday or Sunday mornings back in the day, if I recall. Like, yeah.
yeah, syndicated. It would go out to different places. We had people coming in from all over involved in basketball that would come and voice it in their native languages. Julien Guéreneau would come from France, became friends with him. Um, anyway, it was, and then probably, I don't know, 10 episodes in, he's like, Jeff, we're going to go to Barcelona for the EuroBasket. It's like 1997. How would you like to go and commentate? I was like, yes, absolutely. I mean, what are you going to say? Yes, I will be there. You don't have to ask. And so I went and he asked me to do the play-by-play, and Rob did the color, and we did that first EuroBasket. And I'll never forget, even before I started commentating, I was sitting there in the stands watching Germany play Poland, and walking up from the floor after the German game, Germany lost, was a guy that I recognized, a guy that played at UNC named Henrik Rudel. And I spoke to him. He's like, "You went to Chapel Hill?" I mean, so there was like an immediate connection. Now, the other thing, now this is crucial. Ross, I remember telling Ross, I was like, Ross, the guy that hired me, he was in the arena. I said, Ross, man, these guys are good. I had no idea these guys could play basketball like this. And he goes, Jeff, these guys would kill any college team that comes out
Yeah,
here. And that
exactly.
really put it into context because you, as an American, you kind of look at things through American eyes, and we're the best. And, obviously we had great players like Jordan and everybody else that went to college. But I think already at that point, European basketball especially was changing and was getting better and better. So that's how kind of it started, and just kind of really accelerated, stopped. ISL went bankrupt. Then FIBA took it in-house, and then eventually they called me back and I started working. And yeah, there's a lot
So
of stories I could tell.
Wow, that's because like there's a couple of things I want to ask you about there. Like I'm gonna start with the near one timeline wise first. 97, you're saying is your first EuroBasket. That one is fascinating to me because the I suppose the moment that got me into European level ball, because I was one of those, I was like 11 when the Dream Team was playing, so and we had the highlights shows in Channel 4, which you were probably voicing if one of them was Slam, and but like 97 Eurobasket, like I'm watching that on Eurosport back in the day, and Djordjevic's three to beat Croatia in the quarterfinal is sort of when it's like, okay, yeah, I love European basketball. So that was like always like the moment for me. I was saying if you want to like find sort of where it began, it's that. But because people have seen you on screen plenty of times. You're a pretty tall dude. Like did you play much at all? What was your own game like as a player?
I'm like an American. I play basketball, baseball, American football. And all honesty, baseball was my first love growing up. I played
Again, North
basketball,
Carolina. Yeah. So
but I played basketball. I mean, everybody plays basketball, but um, I did. I played my freshman year in high school when it was actually middle school, and then once I went to East Mecklenburg High School, I just never felt like basketball was my calling as a
mm.
player. I focused mainly on baseball, but basketball's in my blood, so to speak.
Purely because you said you played it, and I played it for a few years at a bit older age than you did. What position did you play in football?
Are you talking about American football?
American football. Oh, yeah, gridiron.
Oh, you know, I played. I mean, I didn't play at a high level either. I just played as a kid. So
Oh,
I
I
was
mean,
on
I
the
mean,
line.
as a kid, yeah.
I was a lineman.
Oh, same as myself. So we have that in common.
So the problem there is you're watching sports and you want to be the hero. You want to be Tom Brady. For me, I wanted to be Terry Bradshaw or John Stallworth of the Steelers. Instead, I was the big guy and they put me on the line. There's no fun in that.
I really enjoyed it. Although I always point out to anybody who knows American football, so I managed to play every position of the offensive line except for center because they didn't trust me touching the ball, which I think was a very, very good idea. So, because 97, so is, I suppose, you've been in Europe a lot longer than that, but 97 is sort of the beginning of this commentary journey. So I want to sort of ask you about sort of how you went from being sort of, guy who sort of got into it being where we are now, where we expect to hear your voice, because you do a lot more than just commentary at these events when you're on site at them. So, like, how did you sort of get confident? Because again, a lot of this, it was basketball, which is great, but it was kind of alien to you still because you grew up with the way they play ball in college and, NBA being on TV. So how did you sort of get used to sort of covering at this European level, like?
I was friends with Laszlo Nemeth, a Hungarian
Mm-hmm.
coach of England back in the day, and just felt an immediate connection to basketball and began understanding how the game in Europe wasn't so much about the athleticism. It was much more, felt like there was a lot more tactics that were involved. Um, and I mean, it was an easy adaptation. It's great shooters. Um, you're working hard for 24 seconds on the shot clock to get a good shot. And I began to appreciate the discipline that I saw and the attention to detail, especially with those from the former Yugoslavia, which now obviously
Mm.
Serbia and Croatia, and understanding that these guys have broken it down into a science and it's coach controlled. It's not player controlled. I think even in those days, the players were the ones that were kind of in control, at least in the NBA.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much in college, although now that's I think changing with the portal, with guys leaving if they don't like their situation, how much money. Don't get me going on that. I'm totally depressed about the state of college basketball. But yeah, so it was easy, and it's just like anything else. I wouldn't say that I'm a huge cricket fan, but while I was in England and working for the Press Association, because that was my other job that I got right about the same time that I got the job with Slam. And that's probably the greatest job I'd ever had because I learned so much from colleagues, but also about challenging myself with different sports and the language is so different. So you're watching cricket and yeah, I would never know cricket like an Englishman, obviously, but you start to learn the personalities and you start to learn about the history. And I think just the more time that you're immersed in something, the more adept you get at it, especially in a broad general sense. And even if I were not a huge basketball expert. I wouldn't say that I'm a basketball expert. I'm more of like a fan, I think, that really covers the game. And you just have to become familiar with the history, and appreciate the excellence when you see it. And I leave the Mike Taylors and the Pero Camerons and the Mark Clarks and Lloyd Gardners. Uh, I leave it to them to break down, Shona Thorburns, the expertise, the Azania Stewarts. They know basketball as a player. That's a different level. And you're talking about internationals. I'm like you, Emmett. I mean, I'm guessing that we love the game, but we see it more through the eyes of fans.
Yeah.
I can get into a conversation about things, but after a while, I kind of switch off when you start really getting too tactical.
Yeah.
My brain just doesn't operate like that. And I think most people watching, in all honesty, are like us.
Well,
So I
if
think
you,
from that standpoint, it's an advantage.
yeah, because a part of it like is you're watching it like a fan, you're sort of doing it at kind of a higher volume,
Yeah,
because it is, it's
I
in.
do shout a lot.
Well,
Yes.
no, I meant both in terms of sort of the way people talk, but also the
Yeah.
volume of content you actually are, looking at. Because when you do, commentary, or, if you're covering a sport, you're going to see more games than the average fan is. So you're going to just sort of, get that muscle memory of, well, if this happens, this is likely to happen. And it's all subconscious and stuff, like, so if something goes wrong, you go, oh, that's a surprise. You're still thinking like a fan. You're just, getting more used to the habits almost of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
speaking of well volume, not the loud bits. Yeah, we get to that. If you were to put a ballpark number on it, because it's obviously a huge year for tournaments, how many games in a year would you say you commentate on? Because it must be pretty high, especially
Yeah,
with
really.
this.
I,
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never actually added them up. Maybe there's 365 days in the year, and probably be up around, I don't know, maybe 100, maybe 150 or something like that, maybe a little bit more.
no, because that's the thing. That's a lot of basketball, a lot of variety in that basketball. In that, and that's just from the ones you're commentating on. That's excluding the ones you're watching as a fan. Like you're going to just get develop, mental habits, I think, as well. Like, with that. So like which again, this is for the way we communicate with fans when we're on the mic. Sort of stuff we aren't thinking that we're thinking about can often come in handy. It's what I was trying to get across. But speaking of that volume of work, you've had a very busy summer. So tell people about the amount of travel you've been doing, and what's still ahead.
Well, I don't know. It depends how far you want to go back. If you want to talk about just national team tournaments,
Let's just go
I
national team tournaments
flew.
for the time being. Like, yeah,
Okay, so I flew to Greece, to Athens, and had the great joy of covering the FIBA Women's EuroBasket, and watched Belgium win this improbable final against Spain, this miracle comeback, with the player that I think would, if she's not the best player in the world, certainly one of the all-time legends of international basketball, Emma Messaman, but also her supporting cast. I have such a deep love for Belgium women's basketball. You can't understand, because for me, this Coach Mestag, for me, kind of started um, this whole system with these young players, and they just play the beautiful game. You know how people used to talk about how Brazil played the beautiful game in
yeah,
football? This is the Belgian women's basketball team. They play the beautiful game. I mean, you want to watch it. You don't care if they win or lose. You're loving how they're passing, how they're cutting to the basket. They don't look like the greatest athletes at times, but they're just so smart, you know, and the way they move without the ball. Julie Van Loo, all of these players are just so much fun to watch. So that was a great experience being in Athens, which clearly is one of the homes of basketball.
mm.
I'm not talking international basketball.
Just hoops.
I'm
Like,
not
yeah,
talking Greek. I'm talking basketball. Let's be honest. That was the first World Cup that I watched. It was in Athens. That was the second Olympics that I went to. It was in Athens. And they've got those great teams. They've got those legends like Panayotis Giannakis. Now you've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. So that was the first tournament. That was a couple weeks, and honestly, Emmett, I the people that I work with at FIBA, whether they're in the FIBA Europe, primarily from there, but Asia, they're just such good people, or FIBA Media, that it's just I can't tell my wife how much I like it, because she thinks She thinks I'm on holiday. I gotta lower my voice. Um, it's good to
Cool.
get away. It's good to get away and be involved in a sport that you love, around people that you enjoy being with that get the best version out of yourself. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I feel like that's what happens when I go to these FIBA events. So that was 2 weeks. I came home for a month. I was desperate to get out and get in shape and do a lot of cycling, which I can do in Valencia with my brother-in-law coming from London. Uh, he's Dutch and he really pushes me. And so we did a lot of riding and I think you may saw one of my nephews that just walked past.
Oh, lovely.
Um, and then I went to Asia. I went to the FIBA Asia Cup, which was held in Saudi Arabia. I did actually do an under 20 EuroBasket remotely, which is also a lot of fun, but I did that from home. Because you get to see the up and coming players. Some of them
Mm.
are going to make it, some of them are not. And let's see, and Italy won that tournament. So that was a lot of fun. And then I went off to Saudi Arabia on August 2nd, and never been to Saudi. I've been to Dubai, and just first of all got to again be reunited with people that I know, and then I worked with some new people that I really enjoyed. But the basketball itself, I don't think it's quite at the same level. I'm not. This is not brain surgery. You know that Europe is probably the strongest, but some of the games were just right down to the wire, comebacks, thrills. Australia have won 3 straight FIBA Asia Cups and barely. They've won the last two barely, beating Lebanon in 2022. And this time, if you watch the final, China led by as many as 15, then they fell behind, then they came back. Just an amazing game
That was a
that
comeback
basically,
tournament though this summer, it seemed. It was just like comebacks in every knockout game, it felt like.
it really was.
And like,
So
by the way, Jeff is being very nice here, by the way, because he got back last night and is doing this with us. So, I'm
rapid
very,
sleep.
very, I'm very impressed that he's giving some, because you're flying again in a few days, right?
25th.
25th, yeah. So, like, yeah, it's a few days from when we're recording, like. So, EuroBasket for you, because I know when you're at these, let's say you don't just do commentating. Like, commentating is a job in itself, a lot of work. You're also quite often like working the press conferences, stuff like that. Like,
Oh,
so.
yeah, sure.
So tell us,
Yeah.
because for you mentally, because there's, because like this, it's a part I always feel is underappreciated in terms of the work you've got to do. Commentating versus managing a press hall are two ridiculously different jobs. So do you have to decompress for a few minutes, or what's it like for you when you come out, like?
I definitely don't decompress. I first of all, I consider it a real honor that I get to do it because I get to represent FIBA when I'm doing this. And I also get to meet the people that I'm covering. It really actually helps me with my job that I know these people, that I speak to them, these players. And when they see you again, they'll stop and they'll talk. But yeah, it does get kind of long sometimes, and there has been there have been 1 or 2 occasions when I'm like running from the press conference to get back to my setup because we've got another game. It's but I'm probably better suited because I don't ask great questions out in the field. So it's better that I'm just introducing people and calling on people to ask questions. And it's yeah. So and these things are different. When you go to the World Cup, like in Manila, FIBA Basketball World Cup, and host those press conferences, those are different. They feel different to the ones when you host them at the FIBA Eurobasket or the FIBA Women's Eurobasket. I don't know. There's just a different feel to it, but it's uh it's something that I do that I actually like to do. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
that
overstressed about it.
that's great because the reason I'm always impressed by this is that you're very calm when you're doing those, and there have been some games I've either been at or witnessed on screen where you got into the moment in the best way. So there's a couple I want to ask you about, but I also want to ask about your own favorites. One that I think is easy for everybody to go is Greece USA 2006. What was it like getting to cover that?
Oh man, you know, I, to this day, that's my favorite FIBA Basketball World Cup. And if I'm being honest, I actually get a little emotional just that you would bring that up because it was just a beautiful thing. I mean, even before that, Hamamatsu was a group of death with Turkey, with Lithuania, Australia, Greece, Qatar, Brazil. You know who was that? I mean, do you know who was in those teams? It
Yeah,
was
they
incredible. Greece had just won the EuroBasket. And Panayotis, and Giannakis was the coach of that team. And Papa Lucas was the point guard. Diamantidis was there. Spanoulis. All of these guys. Are you kidding me? But anyway, fast forward. Let's go. Let's go straight to the last day. I will never forget the FIBA communications officer at the time, Florian Waniger, who he I saw him before the day, and he goes, Jeff, I really think this is going to be a special day, international basketball. and, and, and boy, did it turned out to be. I mean, Greece beating a U.S. team, albeit with young LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony and all of these guys under coach Mike Krzyzewski, even though they win 101-95, which is probably, I would argue, the signature moment in Greek basketball. I know a lot of people would go back to the 80s when they won the EuroBasket for the first time. And then Spain edging Argentina when Andres Naciones' potential game-winning shot from the right corner stayed out. But yeah, I had remembered, yeah, that Greek team was just, I don't know. I will always hold the Greeks close to my heart because you got to understand, it's not just about the players. It's not just about the history, the coaches. It's also about the people around them, the journalists. These guys know basketball. They've all got opinions, but yet they're also very respectful when they speak to you, no matter who you are, whether you're American, whatever. So I just love being around Greece when they play. And at the Olympic qualifying tournament last summer in Piraeus, to see some of these guys coming back, like Papaloukas and Diamantidis, and obviously Spanoulis as the coach, it was kind of like a celebration of basketball for Greece, more so a Greek basketball rather than a celebration for Greece returning to the Olympics. But that moment, that 101-95 was it shook up international basketball, and to the credit of the USA, it woke them up.
and
And
for you calling that must have been quite special. Like I'm thinking, getting to call that game, like
yeah, it was. I was middle of the court, up high, uh, but with a good view, and just absorbing what was taking place was pretty amazing, especially seeing Papa Lucas and Big Sofo have such big moments, and also remembering the shock of the U.S. players like Dwight Howard after the game because he went to the bench because he wasn't coping well with the pick and roll. And it was just kind of like a rebirth of international basketball. It felt like, even though
you're only
international
2 years
teams,
removed from like Argentina, USA, but yeah, it still felt that way. You're right. Like,
yeah, it did. But and also 2 years removed from Puerto Rico being the USA on the opening day at the 2004 Olympics, and
mm,
also
Lithuania getting the win. Yeah.
Jasikavic going off for what, 26 points to beat the USA. And yeah, so that was definitely special.
And one that's less I remember, but one I recall oddly because I was at this game, but I was sent the YouTube afterwards, or else I saw it on my stream of your calling the winning shot. So if you remember it at all, Turkey, Australia 2014, Emir Prelzic just out of nowhere, kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah. But for you, like, because when you get that excited, how it must be quite a moment for you.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that game because I was just talking to Andrew Gaze and Pedro Cameron about that at the FIBA Asia Cup, two guys that I just worked with who are obviously, Andrew is the most famous, the legendary Australian, player. Even a lot of Americans know him because he played at Seton Hall, made it to the NCAA final. And then Pedro Cameron, who's Mr. New Zealand basketball,
Yeah,
and we were
absolutely.
talking about Prelzic and how, yeah, he was their main guy at that tournament. And I think Australia had a really good team, even if Pat Mills wasn't playing. And they felt like they were going to be in the semifinals. And really, for all intents and purposes, they should have been. And Preljic made these two shots from about, it felt like 2 meters behind the arc, and beat them. And all I know is you did not want to be the furniture in that Australia locker room after the game because it took a beating by all accounts.
I'm thinking a chair below you probably took a beating just from you getting up and down in excitement, to be honest. Like, but yeah, no, it's like because this thing one of the things I want to ask you about before we wrap up is because obviously there's a lot more sort of mix of remote and on site now, and obviously being on site nothing beats that. For you, has the adapting to do so much remote like been a challenge at all, or what's it like? Because like for me doing remote is great. The only downside is I occasionally am a bit too loud for my flatmate. I love you, Anna. I'm sorry, I'm occasionally too loud. But but for you, aside from potentially being too loud for your family, like has remote been a challenge at all?
Yeah, what I've learned about remote commentary is, first of all, we're very lucky to be able to do it because there's less travel time involved, less hotel, whatever. And somebody like me who works in basketball, I'm very, especially in international basketball and basketball Champions League, I'm very familiar with these players and everything else. So I do prepare for games, but maybe I don't have to prepare as much as a lot of people. And to do it, to do it from home, it's a luxury. Now, are you missing things in the arena? Of course you are. I mean, you do see certain things from afar that in the arena that maybe you might want to address, but essentially, you always, as a commentator, need to be talking to the pictures that you see on the screen. So by actually doing remotely, it actually enhances that, or it actually removes sort of the one of the problems that you might have in the arena where maybe occasionally you might start watching the game more and you don't keep your eye on the TV and you're talking about something that maybe uh, they're not seeing, they're seeing something else. So you have to watch the screen. But apart from you obviously need electricity. So if you have a thunderstorm that knocks out your power, that might be a problem. Or that's only happened once, or no, a couple of times, in fact. So I've tried to remedy that so that won't happen again. And yeah, um,
Because there's one remote in particular that comes to mind. Because like back in my old, I still do write for this paper, but I'm not gonna shout them out. The one I used to work for full time. Sure, might as well business post. So at the start of we'll say spring 2020. I think we know where we're going here. There wasn't that much sport in the world, and the Chinese Taipei Basketball League was the only thing
yeah,
left going. So I figured, well, that's on YouTube. I'll watch that. And whose voice
wow.
do I hear? So, but for you, that's the thing, the remote, like, because FIBA weren't just able to like get that out to the world. You could commentate on games literally half a world away from your home in Spain, which is kind of wild to even think about now.
Yeah, it was. Hey, we all remember how traumatized we were by COVID and what it meant in every aspect of our lives, whether it's, getting out of bed in the morning and trying to, if you're allowed to step outside, or how it affected our careers. And you, yeah, so I was eager for live basketball coverage. And Emmett, I'm kind of, you talk to the ordinary basketball fan, they want to talk about maybe the NBA or leading clubs in Europe, or maybe in the summers they want to talk about the national teams or during the windows. Um, they want to talk about the teams in the top 10, top 20 of the FIBA World Ranking. I relish these lesser known games. I mean, it's just the
Yeah.
essence of basketball that everybody plays it. And, so the Chinese Taipei League is, for me, it's fun. I love watching it. They got a lot of great players, a lot of great stories. And we just watched, for example, how their national team played. They came within seconds of advancing to the semifinals of the FIBA Asia Cup. So there's always a good story in every league.
Yeah, no, it's extraordinary. I know I am keeping you time wise, and I know also we're keeping the listeners time wise because most of you, when you're listening, are probably commuting, so you are going to wrap up. Jeff, for people, you've been phenomenal to talk to. Obviously, we're all going to hear you a lot over the next 2.5 weeks. From across the EuroBasket venues. But if people want to like keep up with what you do or keep doing, like, where can they hear your voice? And is there anywhere online you would send people to follow find you?
Certainly, courtside 1891 would be where they would find me if they're watching abroad. I know that a lot of our coverage ends up on ESPN in America. Um, I'm not really active on social media
Because you're a well-adjusted
now.
human being, basically. So that's why.
Yeah, you know, it's um it's just one of those things. I enjoy looking at some of the social media, to be honest. A lot of it for the comedic value, but I always look at the social media channels that we do because they're promoting basketball. So maybe the FIBA Instagram accounts or X accounts or Facebook or YouTube channel. You can watch a lot of the YouTube stuff, all of the games, highlights. They end up on the FIBA YouTube channel. So I would steer people there, and also
Fantastic.
the official tournament websites.
Of course, yeah. So, and well, I'm sure I will be seeing Jeff definitely in Riga. I don't know what group you're in. I'm going to Tampere, so I'll probably see you
Lucky
in.
you.
Yeah,
All right.
it's in, well, I'm not commentating. I'm covering for BAE, but like it's a case of well, I want to see Finland. I haven't seen Finland, and the British are there, so I might get some work with their papers. Is my attitude, and so get that out of the way, and then over to Riga. So I'm sure I will see you in Riga though. Hopefully, Jeff. And listen, thanks so much though for your time ahead of EuroBasket, talking to the voice of FIBA International Basketball has always been great. Jeff Taylor, thank you so much. If you want to follow us, remember it's Ball in Europe is the channel on everything except for Instagram, where it's ballineurope.com, because about 10, 15 years ago, somebody registered Ball in Europe. We don't think it was us and we can't find them. So we have a comment at the end. It's easier to find. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, give us a review because that helps. But for now, I've been Emmet Ryan and I'll talk to you soon. Barely Hoops is a Ball in Your production. Our theme music is Deep Feelings, licensed from Artlist.